Check, check. Hello, friends. Welcome to this precarious Friday the 13th, 2026. This is show number 2 of Eyes to See, Vision Beyond Narrative. Now, I'm a little sketchy here at the first because I tried to get this to live stream to Twitter, Facebook, YouTube Flocka Watch channel, and YouTube Eyes to See channel. So I don't know where you're at, but let me know in the comments. Apparently Twitter didn't work, so it shorted out, and we are going forward with Facebook and YouTube. If you were here last Friday, and every Friday going forward, you will see that we're going to create a space where we can discuss intelligently, as humans have been trying to do for many, many years, politics and current events. Last week, I wrote an essay, like I like to do with many of my shows. This one, essay number 2 for this show, I battled with left and right. I think I did like 5 drafts in the last hour. This is the last one, or this is the last one, and I still could probably redo it. But it's establishing these first principles when you're discussing politics that's important. If you don't even know what left and right are, why would you use the terms? If you don't know what any terms are, why do you use them? People are pretty bad at making good arguments. I've noticed that. That's why I've built these shows, so we can establish clear, concise thinking, solid arguments together. So I hope you're up for that, and if you're enjoying it, it is Friday the 13th at 11 p.m. in the Mountain Standard Time. I just looked outside and it's raining. In this drought-filled United States, we got a little rain. So thankful for that. So as the rain drops and you make yourself a nice coffee, so many YouTubers are like, grab your coffee, we're going to get started. Well, grab whatever you need to get your mind right, because it's late at night and coffee might not be the best thing. But we're going to read this essay number 2, and then we're going to discuss some political events and the outworkings of my mind for a minute. And then, I can get into your comments too at that point, which I won't do until I finish this. So if you're begging me to see what you're saying, like happened one time, wait until we're done. And it's not that long, 3 pages as normal. Let's get into it. Essay number 2. This one's titled, hold on, my freaking wallet. Everybody has not everybody, not anymore, but always having fat wallets with no money in it. They may mess up your back. Okay, here we go. Essay number 2, titled, What If I'm Wrong About Everything? Let me begin with a question most political commentary avoids, not because it's not important, but because it's frightening. It's destabilizing. What if I'm wrong about everything? Not just wrong about policy detail or a factual claim, but wrong in the deepest sense about how I interpret events, how I assign moral weight, how I decide who is dangerous and who is righteous. That question is unsettling because it threatens the foundation most political identities are built on, a borrowed certainty that is established by joining one team or another. Modern politics is built to protect us from that discomfort. It gives us experts to borrow certainty from, talking heads who reassure us that our instincts are correct. Our enemies are obvious, and our side, whatever label we wear today, has a monopoly on moral clarity. The most educated people are often the most vulnerable to this trap. Not because they're stupid, but because they're trained to consume information and take no responsibility for judgment. They know the headlines, the terminology, the political science, the approved villains, And they mistake that fluency for wisdom. This is how moral laziness dresses up as sophistication. We're told to care deeply about politics, but not to think deeply about ourselves. We're encouraged to have strong opinions without first establishing first principles. We debate outcomes before defining values. We argue policy before asking what kind of human being should be trusted with power at all. Before left and right, there is something more basic. There is power. Power is the ability to shape reality without compliance. We'll talk about it after the paper. I want to develop that, but the next term, there is narrative. The narrative, the story we tell to justify how that power is used. Think media manipulation narrative or government sanctioned narrative. And then there's character, the restraint or lack of it that decides whether power corrupts quietly or catastrophically. Left and right are not moral categories. They are administrative preferences. They tell you nothing about whether someone is honest, disciplined, humble, or capable of telling the truth when it costs them something. Treating them as moral absolutes is how intelligent people become useful idiots. Politics stripped of illusion is the struggle over power under conditions of disagreement. That's not cynical, it's accurate. The danger begins when people pretend politics can replace conscience. Here's the part that no one wants to hear, especially the well-informed. If I outsource my moral judgment to a talking head, no matter how smart, credentialed, or charismatic, then I am not thinking. I am consuming. And consumption is not a virtue. A person who cannot tolerate doubt will always cling to a narrative. A person who refuses to examine their own motives will always invent a villain, an enemy, or as the kids say, an op. A person who confuses being informed with being good is already halfway to justifying anything. This is where the battle actually is, not between parties, not between nations, not between us and them. The line between good and evil runs through the human heart, mine included. That realization is not flattering. It strips away the pleasure of being obviously right. It destroys the fantasy of a clean enemy, somewhere out there poisoning an otherwise pure world that would have been utopian if you wouldn't have messed it up. It forces me to admit that the same impulses I condemn, self-righteousness, resentment, the hunger for certainty, maybe even the hunger for power, live comfortably close to home. And that's precisely why this framing matters, because any political worldview that does not begin with moral self-examination will eventually excuse what it once claimed to oppose. It'll excuse anything, apparently. History is very clear on this point. Evil does not announce itself as evil. It arrives calling itself necessary. So before I ask what policies should be enacted, I have to ask a harder question. What am I willing to excuse in myself to feel morally secure? If I am wrong about everything, the correction won't come from louder arguments or better slogans. It'll come from rebuilding my political vision from first principles. Truth over tribe, restraint over outrage, responsibility over self-righteousness. That is slower, lonelier, less profitable, but it's the only place where something worth defending can grow. And if that unsettles you, then good. It should. Hopefully you picked up what I was putting down. The vision I have for this show over the next several months, I would say. So I'm going to do this every week, weekly, till the end of the year. Hold on a second. All right, sorry about that. Sounds like there's a construction crew above my head. Down here in the basement, also known as the gold mine, in my basement, where we mine the nuggets. The little golden nuggets of wisdom and insight from... Wait, this is the wrong show. That's the Little Nugget Show, coming to you tomorrow at 11 p.m. Apparently tomorrow's the 3-point contest, so we're going to have a fun little recap of that as a Dimmer Nugget Show tomorrow, and then Sunday is the All-Star Game. So I'll do another one Sunday night for the Little Nuggets. Then Monday we'll be back for the Grow Show. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I think Thursday's the Nuggets. And then next Friday, we'll be back here developing, clearing, wiping our eyes so that we can see more clearly. Now, back to politics. I've always been a skeptical... There we go. I've always been a skeptical, questioning soul. A cynic, a critic, a contrarian. I don't like rules. I had that discussion with my 16-year-old daughter today, who was going to join me on my show. I almost forced her into it because I was like, we're going to have to show the camera what your generation is thinking. Now, she's a whippersnapper, smart. I forced her to read, I coerced her into reading. Actually, we created a reading list of 50 books. And I told her, every book you read, I give you $100 for it that's on this list. Tell you no lies. That would provide her $5,000, and you could buy a car or something. I think she's in the 20 book range at this point. But 1984, Brave New World, Animal Farm, those are the basics, right? And if you're not reading as a kid, which 99% of kids don't, I didn't read. I sat around thinking a lot, but I didn't read. So I didn't really know what other people were thinking. And that's the problem. Reading isn't so that you can be convinced of what other people think, although some arguments might be persuasive. It's to know what everybody else thinks, so that you can yourself build your own thinking. For instance, take this analogy. In cannabis cultivation, I was actually forced to study the act of growing at home through the many books, the handful of books, I should say, that were out there. I read 28 books, I think, on growing cannabis at home, which was all of the ones out there. And I had a year to do this before I could even start building a room. Why do I bring this up? Because that's the idea of reading and politics, is that if you read all the other people, then you can build your own system, which I did. My system, in my opinion, transcends all of theirs because it's standing on the shoulders of those who came before you. It's the sum of the parts is greater than the parts. The sum of the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So yeah, I encourage children to read. I encourage all of us to read. Now, like I said, I didn't read because I can't read. I mean, I can read. I can't sit down and look at a book. The one thing I can do is listen. And hopefully that's what you're doing tonight as you roll around your grow room, watering your plants that enlighten you and highlight your life. No, I grew up listening to the radio a lot, was forced to. Anytime we were out working in our shop, there was a radio on, and it was talk radio, or it wasn't music radio. That stuff's intolerable. Intolerable. The commercials, can't stand them. But then as I got older, I realized, hey, I can listen to whatever I want. And then the internet came, and it was like, absolutely, now I can listen to whatever I want. And now it's even more so that you can listen to whatever you want. And I've listened to, like, I think in my Audible library, if you know what Audible is, I have 300 plus books in there. And I devour them audioly. I don't necessarily get 100% of what they're saying all the time, but I couldn't do it in person because I was never trained to read. So if you have children or you are children, learn to read. That's step one. Then learn to write. That's step two. Also learn to speak. Could switch that with 2 and 3. Because as the great father of the Indiana Jones said, the pen is mightier than the sword. And that's what we're trying to do. These are my swords. These are my arrows. I'm battling a world of ignorance and misguided certainty. I did want to talk about, so what are some hot topics for politics today? Before I get back into it, let's check the comments. There's 9 comments. That's crazy. Oh, bruh. Not appropriate. Okay, so I don't know if I should divulge who these people are. We do know this person, and we can do this. Like we normally do. Does it do 2 of them? Okay. I see. Viewer comments will not be visible when streaming to Facebook profile unless the stream is set to public. I did set it to public. Well, next time we'll get Facebook right. Let me know if you're watching this on Facebook by accident. How would they absolutely have shown you this? But, okay, so no political comments. So we'll get back to it. So hot topics on politics. ICE. ICE, baby. The reason I bring that up is because my daughter's high school had a little walkout. What was it, yesterday? Day before? Now, my perspective is if you're in prison, which that's what school is, government-sanctioned prison, which I don't like school. I'll be the first to admit that I think school is an entire waste of time, that you can learn absolutely more in half the time. And it's a system that's basically just ineffective and corrupt. But not terribly, like the FBI, but it's pretty bad. So I'm trying to find, I might have to go back a little bit. Anyway, so I don't want my kids at school anyway, but they have to go. And the excuse I give is sports. You go to play sports, and in order to play sports, you have to sit through a bunch of bullshit. So she's saying, did you hear about the walkout thing? And as soon as she said that, I knew. I was like, no shit. These kids, these pretentious little teenagers, they're going to walk out and protest ICE. Now, I'm just going to go through my conversation with her. Not to tell you how you should think or even how I should think, but just to tell you how I thought, and maybe we can work something out. But I'm picturing, more than anything, I'm picturing a 16-year-old that is, not her specifically, but is all 16-year-olds are super influenced. And I don't remember any smart high schoolers, like thoughtful, thinking, smart high schoolers. And to be honest, there's not that many smart people, now that I think of it. So you might ask yourself, what exactly are we protesting? We have a rage against the orange man? Is it a rage against... What? Okay, stand by. We're going to have to pause real quick. All right, so maybe I shouldn't look at any comments, because now I forgot what I was saying, and we just had quite a bit of dead time there, didn't we? Okay, let's get back to that story. Just take these motherfuckers off here. All right, so we have this protest going, right? And I don't care if she's sad about people that are here 30 years, American citizens getting deported. Okay, these are the arguments from one side. We're done with the illegal bullshit. You're not coming into the country illegally anymore because they shut the border down, and everybody that came illegally is going out. That's the far one side. The other side is everyone and their mother should come into this country, and we should all deplete our resources and live happily ever after, or whatever. And if you are here, it doesn't matter legal. We don't follow rules anyway. But you can take your happy ass and let us be, or whatever. So I choose not to take a side. I choose to step back and look at it through what it is. You still need to start defining terms. One side is refusing to cooperate with policy. Policy is politics. Policy is creating procedures on how we're going to live. And humans in the United States have been doing it for 250 years. Matter of fact, some of our founding fathers were some of the best policy writers in the history of humanity, judging by their fruit. However, we've drifted far from that. And now we're to a point where a majority, possibly, a large minority, possibly, of this country doesn't want to follow rules unless they apply to them. I like the ones that, I like, but I don't like the ones, so pick and choose, right? That's not how you run a country. That's not how you run a company. That's not how you run a family. You make rules. And if you don't like the rules, you change the rules. The people that make and change the rules are the ones that have power. And in the United States, we have delegated that power as a republic representative form of democracy, to where the stakeholders, at this point, it's everybody, up into including non-citizens, vote on who they want representing them. So over the next few weeks and months, we're going to have to dig into a framework where we can critique. I always hate the word both sides, or the term both sides, because the fact that if you're buying into the narrative of sides, you're already on the wrong page, as we established in our paper. But to get back to the protest. So my daughter is an athlete. She plays for a team, so she wasn't going to be going out to protest anyway, because then she wouldn't be able to play in her game. Now, I'm all about civil disobedience and protest, but what exactly are you protesting, and do you know? You're protesting the laws? Are you protesting ICE mistreating or grabbing the wrong people or doing scary things? Because motherfucker, nobody was saying that in the 80s and 90s when the DEA was kicking doors in and hauling motherfuckers off. There were no protests. That's what the government does. My God. Okay, I got to pause again. Yeah, forgive me. Take a break. Do your other things. I got about 60 seconds here. Next time I'm turning my phone off when I start this. Oh, fuck. All right, back to it, hopefully. I'm just going to put my thing on airplane mode. Oh, my God. Are you fucking kidding me? Oh, my God, you fucking cunt. I'm talking about the swipe. The swipe. I can't fucking stand the swipe keyboard when it starts getting shit wrong. Well, this is a great show, isn't it? I may just have to cut the fucking ass end of it off. Fuck. Motherfucking shit. Wow. All right, back at it. Maybe. Definitely have to put my phone on airplane mode. All right. I said, no. Did you hear about the walkout thing? I said, no. But if I find out you're walking out, there's going to be problems. When is it supposed to be? Now. She said, I'm not going, of course. And I said, do not fucking go. I wouldn't be able to play this weekend if I did. And I said, you don't need that as an excuse, but that's a good reason. A better reason might be, I'm not engaging in the political arguments of ignorant and misguided people. My protest will be made on paper with the mind and elegant reasoning. I'm just picturing an ICE walkout protest that I saw on the news where you got students smashing windows and twerking on top of cars. Okay? You're basically making the case for me saying, I don't want that shit around me. And maybe we shouldn't do that in our country. But this isn't about emotion. And people make it about emotion. That's why I say misguided. Make your arguments on paper. Any high schooler that walks out is definitely just trying to get out of class, in my opinion. Then I said, also, you could say something like, all of you ignorant fucks are ill-informed emotional pawns who most likely can't even explain why you're walking out beyond fuck ice, and I will never side with people who don't know what the fuck they're doing, much less why. That's kind of my perspective. You can say fuck ice all you want. I said fuck the DEA forever. But there's a reason you have fucking rules. There's a reason you have law enforcement. Anywhere there's power, there's going to be corruption. We already understand that teachers and parents, when they have power over their kids, they piss kids off because they have power. Well, the whole point of this political thing is, if you've forgotten, you better read something. Because the beginning of this country was written by young men who knew what the fuck they were doing when they wrote it. And their entire thing was to prevent power from corrupting the government. Not to write a moral code or a moral law or anything. To say we are putting checks in place to prevent those in power from being corrupted as best we can. And they got the best system we got in the history of humanity. But turns out there are forces that want that system to fail. And that's kind of where I'm coming from. I think we all need better eyes to see clearly, myself included. But it is frustrating to know that 15 generations of my blood, my name, have been born or buried on this soil. And the principles that it was built on. Nobody's an immigrant on stolen land. Fuck out of here, you pretentious, self-righteous cunt. The Indians would kill and massacre each other and trade land left and right, as did all humans for all of eternity. The Pilgrims came over peacefully, the Puritans. They established a moral order. Did they take over the land? Yeah, that's how power works, remember? The fuck? You have power, you do the same shit. You gonna run a better system? Build it now. That's what I say. Build that fucking system now. Compete against the founding fathers, or tell me where they're wrong. We'll investigate it. No, I didn't necessarily want to get this emotionally involved in this episode, but let's just say my frustrations are at surface level. If you're going to throw me in prison, the thing about law enforcement is you're all responsible for making laws by voting in your politicians and telling them what you agree with and what you don't. What we don't see now as a population is that the people that are making the laws are doing so without. They're doing so corruptly. Because the people that are in power want to stay in power, and they keep themselves in power by maintaining the status quo. Wow, I can't believe I spent this much fucking time on this paper today to have this kind of show. Well, there's that. You got my paper. We can go back to episode 1 and take that paper, and we'll put them into a nice little file. And maybe by the end of the year, we can get our political leanings established in the framework that I've laid out, which is the evil runs between everyone, or through the heart of everyone. It's like not all Jewish people are running the country and evil. Epstein. It's that I'm sure Epstein probably did a handful of good things in his life, because evil people do good things. But the majority outworking of their evil actions doesn't have to do with anything. It's every person has the opportunity to be a little bit evil, a lot evil, and go back and forth between being good and evil. And you can point fingers at the character of people that lie and cheat, steal, and destroy, and say, how dare they? They have no character. But you should remember that you have 3 fingers pointing back at you. So take a look at yourself. I believe the Bible says, before you worry about the speck in your neighbor's eye, remove the plank from your own. And there's never more wise words said tonight, apparently, than that. Because when we're running around yelling and screaming at each other, you need to see clearly, you need to see more clear, you need to see more clear, and we got a plank in our own eye, you can't see shit. Get it? Yeah, I didn't make that story up. But as long as there's no more comments, I'm fucking out of here. Ooh, we got one from Anthony's story. I remember you yesterday. Was it yesterday? But here's what you can do if you're watching this after the fact, or if you're still watching. Once I sign off, leave a comment on the papers. Leave a comment on episode. Go back, you'll see it on my live tab or wherever it is. You can find it. Eyes to See. There's only 2. This is episode 2. And tell me, where do we go from there? Where do we go from there? Because I thought we did a good job. What was our conclusion here? If I'm wrong about everything, the correction won't come from louder arguments or better slogans. Fuck ICE. It'll come from rebuilding my political vision from first principles. That's what we're going to work on. That's what I want to do next time. I love definitions. I love definitions. So I'm going to focus on definitions in essay number 3. Truth over tribe, restraint over outrage, responsibility over self-righteousness. Yeah, slower, lonelier, less profitable, but it's the only place where something worth defending can grow. And if that unsettles you, good, it should. Okay. So I think we got some good shit out into the ether. Let me know what you think in the comments. Today's Friday the 13th, and that's probably why this show went to shit. But we'll be back next Friday, 11 p.m. For The Eyes to See, episode 3. But join me tomorrow at 11 p.m. On the Flocka Watch channel. I think all those channels, yeah. I'll be broadcasting The Little Nugget Show, post 3-point contest of Jamal Murray. Good night.